Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever public portion of the annual meeting of the Board of Directors for the Music for Healing and Transition program. We are honored to be joined tonight by our teachers, some of our teachers, advisors, area coordinators, our administrative team, some former board members, certified music practitioners, our donors, and most importantly, our 2021 graduates and their invited guests. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here tonight. For those of you new to us, the Music for Healing and Transition program, or MHTP, is one of the oldest organizations that trains and certifies musicians in the art and science of providing therapeutic music for body, mind, and spirit. Our graduates, known as Certified Music Practitioners, or CMPs, are trained to provide live acoustic therapeutic music one-on-one as a service at the bedside for patients for the purpose of creating a healing environment for the ill and dying. And tonight, we celebrate our newest graduates who not only met the requirements of the program, but did it under extreme circumstances during this pandemic. I would like to begin with introductions of our board and our admin team for those of you who don't know us. My name is Angela Brown, and I currently serve as the board president. Howard Rosen is our treasurer. Kimberly Cullen serves as our secretary. And we are joined by board members at large, Martha Lewis, who is an original founding member of MHTP, Chuck Beckman, who is also the chair of the development committee, and Shanae Rayford, our most recently elected board member. Our administrative team consists of CEO and CMP Carol Spears, CAO, Chief Administrative Officer Hope Brewstein, Program Coordinator and CMP Mindy Kuchar, and our media assistant Erin Flynn. We're also indebted to the work of our teachers, our area coordinators, and advisors who all have a role in guiding students through the journey to becoming a CMP. I would like to now turn the time over to Carol Spears, CEO, who will highlight for us some accomplishments of 2021, outline some of our goals for 2022, and then MC our graduation ceremony. Carol, over to you.
Thank you, Angela. To help us get focused, to be present for the next hour, I'd like to walk you through a science-based technique that we teach to our students. It comes from the many years of research of the Heart Math Institute, founded by MDs, cardiologists, in California in the 1990s. It is very simple. We'll take about a minute. When we do this, Heart Math research shows that it physiologically brings our mind, our emotions, and body into coherence. Coherence is the term that they coined for this state that they observed. It is a state of optimum balance. And just to note, this is not a meditative state. Coherence is about also being very aware of your external environment and the people around you. So please think of something for which you are grateful. Something that brings to you a sense of gratitude. It might be a person, a pet, a place, an event in your life. Form an image of that for which you are grateful. If you have trouble forming an image, think of just bringing a sense or an acknowledgement of whatever that is. Place the image or that sense in your heart center. And now breathe deeply with intention into that image in the center of your heart. Breathe in and out, being aware of the sensation of gratitude. know that when we do so, we are connected to one another, we are in balance with ourselves. I echo Angela's greetings to all of you. In 2022, MHTP has entered its 28th year of existence, and tonight is our first public meeting and also our first public graduation. I have deep gratitude for each of you for joining us for this inaugural event. It's my pleasure to share briefly with you some of the MHTP highlights of 2021 and what we are looking forward to in 2022, and then honor the 2021 graduates for their hard work and dedication. Everyone in the meeting except the speaker will be muted. The chat, though, is open for anyone to use, either to the whole group or individuals. Throughout the evening, I'll be sharing the screen off and on for different purposes. There will be a PowerPoint for the graduation that highlights our grads. And I'll also be sharing with you examples of therapeutic music and stories of CMPs working with patients. The 2021 MHTP Annual Report is available to you, to the public, on the MHTP website. I am going to share for you so you know where to find it, because we encourage you all to read it. First of all, you would go to the MHTP website homepage, which is mhtp.org. On the Why MHTP tab at the very bottom, you'll see Annual Reports and 990s. Click on that. The annual report is listed here, and our 990s for the last 3 years are also listed. These are financial reports. So I'm just very briefly going to show you what the annual report looks like so that you can have a chance to take a look at it. The cover sheet includes our mission statement. The report then includes accomplishments from 2021 and 2022 goals from the board, the MHTP operations staff, and 3 MHTP committees. So I'm just briefly going to, I don't want to get anyone dizzy here, but I'm going to scroll through. We're not reading this, but I do want to point out that the board determines the strategic directions for each fiscal year. And these directions are coming from our 5-year strategic plan. For 2022, the board chose these 2 directions: recognition of therapeutic music and resource development and stability. So the goals that you'll see as we talk about 2022 have to do with these 2 strategic directions. Each report you see also the individuals who were part of that group. So the board is followed by Chief Executive Officer, accomplishments, and goals. And then our Chief Administrative Officer, again, accomplishments and goals. And I just want to say here that even though Hope and I have separate reports, that we don't do these things alone. And I have to include Mindy in this. We 3 are a team for all of the operational accomplishments and the goals, as well as our contractors, of course, who work with us. Going on, we'll take a look that the next 3 reports are from our volunteer committees. We have a research committee, the National Program Council, and our development committee. And the reports are then followed by a listing of our 2021 donors to MHTP. And please note we had over $30,000 donated by all of these people. Our social media donors don't come to us as separate names, so we had to include them as to the source of the social media. And I want to include here, or we did include, in addition to that direct donation to MHTP, 20 of our students were supported through outside scholarships from the Longy School of Music and the Music and Medicine, Inc., which is a not-for-profit. They contributed $45,000 to 20 of our students to complete our program. And we end with the vision statement for MHTP. And then the final is some selected quotes from CMPs who graduated prior to 2020, just to get a feeling of what they had to say. So again, we really hope that you take the opportunity to look at the annual report. It tells you more about what your organization is doing. I am very briefly going to touch on 3 accomplishments and 3 goals that you can find in the annual report. The biggest accomplishment of 2021 was that MHTP thrived through the pandemic. That was truly our biggest accomplishment. This started, of course, the pandemic in 2020, but has continued throughout 2021. MHTP quickly adapted how we teach our students and what we teach our students. We wanted to give them tools and experiences in providing virtual music as well as on-site live therapeutic music. Virtual is also live therapeutic music. Parallel to the curriculum changes, our adaptations were for were for our CMPs, finding ways to help them keep employed, stay employed through virtual means, helping them to provide their services of therapeutic music to overburdened healthcare staff. So we devised ways to continuously share these tools that were developed in multiple ways with our graduates. Another accomplishment that I want to highlight tonight is a much anticipated and much needed video project. It is completely funded through the donations of many members of the MHTP community. It involves the production of 5 2-minute videos targeted to 5 specific audiences to do multiple things: to share the news about the beneficial and supportive effects of live therapeutic music, recruit students from a diversity of backgrounds and experiences, and help to develop and support possible employment opportunities for our CMPs. The planning and initial production occurred in 2021. The third accomplishment, we are celebrating a record-breaking year of financial philanthropic support to MHTP. I touched on that as we looked through the annual report. And then that includes a record-breaking scholarship support. The goals that we are looking forward to accomplish this year, again, only talking about 3, but they all support the 2 strategic directions that I pointed out. The 5 videos that I mentioned that began their production in 2021, they have a 2022 goal also, and that is the strategic and prolific use of the videos in our marketing. Another goal announcing tonight is that of the regional hubs. You will hear more information about this through other means at a future time, but briefly, it is a major strategic shift as to how MHTP functions, which has at its core relationship building by MHTP regional coordinators. That's a new contractor position that we are developing. The regional coordinators will develop ties to local and regional communities to do multiple things: to proactively grow and diversify MHTP's student population and revenue streams, increase regional and national recognition of MHTP, live therapeutic music, and CMPs, expand MHTP partnerships and scholarship and other donor opportunities, increase our cultural diversity. A specific goal related to the Regional Hub project in 2022 is to raise $16,000 in donated funds to pilot the first set of 3 Regional Hub initiatives. Lastly, the last goal to mention is the successful planning and execution of the 10th Biennial MHTP Conference, July 8th through 10th. I'm going to share something for you now. This is the logo, including the theme that the committee selected. And in that conference logo, we feel that that in the theme reflects and acknowledges the changes that MHTP adopted since our last conference in 2020 in order to thrive. Changes that have led to the creation of a more robust and supportive program, and I believe it also reflects the transformation that all students experience in their journey to become CMPs, which brings us to our graduation, the metamorphosis of students into CMPs. I'm about to share with you a representation of the end product, CMP, through a recording of 4 CMPs, each playing a different type of instrument for about 90 seconds. And after each musician, another CMP reads a brief 1 to 2 minute story written by a third CMP about an experience that they had while providing live therapeutic music to patients in various conditions. All privacy regulations for patients are protected. The names of the story writers are mentioned at the end of each story. And we decided to include this tonight to illustrate what those in the graduating class of 2021 were trained to do. It's good to know about the classes and other requirements to become a CMP, but there's nothing like hearing from the heart both the music and the stories about the life of a CMP.
Deep peace I breathe upon you. Deep peace I breathe upon you. Oh, weariness, here. Oh, sorrow, here. Deep peace I breathe upon you.
In my work as a CMP, I experienced the power of therapeutic music on patients, families, and staff in many ways. One of the most moving was with a young woman suffering from cystic fibrosis. The hospital chaplain had suggested I call on her, and over the course of several months, I visited her frequently. She was never able to speak with me, but she could give me high signs and smile with her eyes. Whenever I asked if she wanted some music, she would nod enthusiastically. She was moved from a regular room to intensive care, where I continued to visit until one day she was gone. One of the nurses informed me that she had been moved back to a regular room where she had been extubated and removed from life support. When I arrived outside her room, she was surrounded by family. The chaplain said that she just couldn't seem to let go. I started to play some of the music she had loved, and the room became very quiet. Later, the chaplain told me that her heart immediately started to slow, and before I had played for very long, the patient peacefully made her transition. I continued to play for her and her family for several minutes. Afterward, the chaplain remarked that the music had helped her as nothing else could have. As always, when I played at a death, I felt humbled and honored to have been present at such a milestone. Margaret Snedden.
I was working for a hospice that covered 3 counties and also worked for individuals who hired me independently to play for loved ones. A woman found me through my local marketing and asked me to play for an hour for her mother, who had been for many years living in an assisted living facility and had just recently been diagnosed for hospice care. She told me her mother was experiencing uncontrollable pain and had not slept for 2 days, even though she was receiving doses of morphine. When I arrived in the early evening, the mother was in her bed, agitated, moaning slightly, hands clenched above the covers, facial muscles tight. The assisted living facility could not be giving her her next scheduled morphine injection for another 4 hours. The room was lit with low lighting. The daughter sat in an easy chair to the left and behind me. After that assessment, I centered myself, sat on my stool, and started improvising on my harp with loosely metered, simple music with varying pauses. After around 10 minutes, the mother had fallen asleep and was lightly snoring, hands unclenched, facial muscles soft. In about another 20 minutes, I heard snoring from behind me. I looked over and saw that the daughter was also sleeping. I continued supporting the patient and her stressed daughter by continuing with the same type of music, opening it even more to longer periods of silence. The room was peaceful, still, and felt suspended to me. The hour ended. I quietly moved out of the room, not waking either the mother or daughter. Mid-morning the next day, the daughter called me to thank me and to say that her mother had slept the whole night into late morning. She had slept through 2 scheduled morphine injections. No matter how many times I witnessed these types of results with therapeutic music, played by trained professionals, bringing their compassionate presence into the room, I am still amazed and so thankful to be a certified music practitioner. Carol Spears.
My first patient was my son. He was born at 7 months, around 32 weeks, and he had to be in the NICU for weeks. He had trouble breathing and eating since he was a premature baby. Before I started playing music for my son, he would have 5 to 6 apnea episodes a day. He would only eat around 10 to 15 milliliters by himself, and most of his food would need to be administered via a feeding tube. After my second CMP module, my teacher, Aline Benoit, encouraged me to start playing live therapeutic music for my son. But when I first suggested it to the nurses at the hospital, one of them was not at all convinced about the idea of me playing the violin bedside for my baby. After I started playing, that nurse brought the other cribs from the NICU to where I was playing, and all the babies simply stopped crying. The hospital stopped being just a hospital. It became a sanctuary of hope, love, and healing. That same nurse who was skeptical at first said after I played, "I think you should come at least once a week." Well, our son started to eat more and breathe better. After a few days of playing every night, he was eating 30, 40, 60, even 80 milliliters by himself. They took his feeding tube off. His apnea episodes reduced to 1 to 2 every other day. An average baby boy usually stays in the NICU until week 40, full term. But our son came home around week 37. I will never forget my son's first reaction to live therapeutic music. I played a movement of a Bach sonata that I used to play for my wife when she was pregnant. And he smiled. Hope Salazar.
entered into the ICU when I was caught by a palliative care nurse. She said, "Can you come and play for the patient in room 103? He's about to be transported to give his organs for donation." I sat up outside the room as the nurse and the respiratory therapist were making sure everything was ready for his transport to surgery. Over the intercom, there was an announcement that an honor walk would take place at 11 and for the staff to line the hallway of the ICU. I continued playing as staff began lining up. The patient's nurse asked me, "Is there any way you can walk and play your harp?" I was tentative in my answer of yes. I had a cart to push the harp, and I needed at least one hand to steer, so I was worried about how I was going to play one-handed and push the cart with the other. The staff prepared the young man for transport, and I walked along behind him as they wheeled him through a crowd of 50 staff to the surgery room. I played one-handed and pushed my harp one-handed. The palliative care nurse caught me on the way back to the unit. She said, "Your playing is usually beautiful, but that was just... the gift you gave that young man was wonderful." I found out later the young man had only an aunt for family, and she did not give him a funeral. I was told that this honor walk was the only send-off this young man had. Amy Laubach.
Thank you for listening. Those stories are powerful. They represent what CMPs do on a daily basis, not only through the US, but through multiple countries that we also have graduates. MHTP typically has 40 to 50 new graduates each year. We had 12 graduates in 2021. We are giving witness to the outcome of not only MHTP's adaptations tonight, but the perseverance and unquenchable desire of our 12 new CMPs, the graduates from 2021, as they took head-on the sudden and unprecedented challenges the COVID-19 pandemic presented. For the last 2 years, they adapted to complete their module classes and, most challenging, their independent practicum. Their goal was to bring their compassionate hearts, musical skills, and the MHTP training, all working together, into healthcare in service to others. And they triumphed in that. For those new to how MHTP training works and to explain what the information shared on the MHTP graduate PowerPoint will be, I'm going to give a brief background. As students are accepted into MHTP, they are assigned an advisor, a CMP who is with them as a support and resource person throughout their studies. The advisor for each student will be listed in that student's information. After completing their 80 hours of coursework in our live video conference classes and additional hours in homework, students must then pass a comprehensive module exam and are approved through an interview with their advisor to assure that they are ready for playing live therapeutic music for patients, and then they are able to embark on their independent practicum. During the independent practicum, students are required to provide 45 hours of direct playing for patients or healthcare workers in approved medical facilities. The cities in which each student did their independent practicum are also listed in the graduation PowerPoint, along with the student's instrument of certification and where they lived during their studies with MHTP. Our students independently complete their graduation requirements as it fits their lives. We note for the grads tonight the number of years that they were in the program. Our students graduate throughout the year, whenever that they are done, so all the graduation dates noted are from 2021. We also include some quotes from the graduates from their final summaries. At the end of the graduation PowerPoint, I will spotlight briefly each graduate who is present tonight. Now, if you have attended a school graduation, the MC usually says, "Hold your applause," until the last person has walked across the stage. On Zoom, you are on mute, so you can applaud all you like. You can use silent clapping, real clapping, jazz hands, one thing that we use in MHTP, or utilize some of the fun icons from Zoom in the Reactions tab at the bottom of your Zoom window. I'll now start with the graduation PowerPoint. Our graduates are listed in alphabetical order. The name of our first graduate is Jamie Abramson. Jamie certified in violin, and she lived in Sarasota, Florida. Jamie shared with us, first of all, her advisor is Susan French, and independent practicum was in Sarasota, Florida, and she shared with us in her final summary. It was interesting for me to take care of patients as a nurse one day, then the very next day, play my violin therapeutically for the same person. The music reached a different place in the same patients. Congratulations to Jamie. Our next graduate, Susan Conceicao. Certified in harp, she's from Westminster, Colorado. Her advisor is Martha Lewis. Her independent practicum was in Louisville and also Evergreen, Colorado, and San Mateo, California. Susan shared with us, "I have found the MHTP program to be rigorous and excellent preparation for acting as a therapeutic musician." Susan was in the program 3 years, graduating on February 7th. Congratulations to Susan. Victor Effiong. Certified in voice and harmonica from Framingham, Massachusetts. Advisor Lynn Weatherby and independent practicum in Framingham, Massachusetts. Victor received a full scholarship from the Longy School of Music, which is one of MHTP's collaborators. He was in the program 2.5 years, finished October 7th. Congratulations, Victor. Daniel Kalosky. Daniel, certified in double bass from Hudson, Florida. His advisor was Keith Barnhart, independent practicum in Lutz, Tampa, and Hudson, Florida. Daniel was in the program 1.5 years, graduated December 23rd. Congratulations to Daniel. Carolyn Mills, certified in harp from Wellington, New Zealand. Her advisor, Mindy Kucher. Independent practicum was in Wellington, New Zealand. Carolyn shared with us, "I have found this work to be so much more fulfilling to me at this time in my life and career than performing on the stage." Carolyn received a full MHTP Louise Trotter Memorial Scholarship. She was in the program 1.5 years, graduating September 10th. Congratulations, Carolyn. Margaret Phillips, certified in bassoon from Ayer, Massachusetts. Advisor, Mindy Kutcher. Independent practicum in Concord, New Hampshire, and Cambridge, Massachusetts. Margaret shared with us, "This experience has been life-changing for me. I cannot wait to heal the world." She was in the program 3 years, graduating July 2nd. Congratulations, Margaret. Wendelin Russell, certified in harp from Aiken, South Carolina. Advisor, Celeste Rogers. Independent practicum in North Augusta and Aiken, South Carolina, and Wilmington, North Carolina. Wendelin wrote, "It took 20 years to get here. I feel like I have accomplished one of the most important items on my life's bucket list. 2 years ago, my soul said, 'It's time.'" Wendy was in the program 1.5 years, graduating December 9th. Congratulations, Wendelin. Aracita Sally, certified in voice, lives in Coos Bay, Oregon. Advisor, David Burrows. Independent practicum in Coos Bay. I want to point out here that Aracita is holding her certificate of graduation from MHTP in this photo. And her words, "MHTP has changed my mentality of music because I only knew music needs to be performed. Now MHTP taught me to center myself and give healing presence to the patients." Aracita was in the program 3 years, graduating June 21st. Congratulations, Aracita. Nicholas Sternad, certifying in harmonica from El Dorado Hills, California. His advisor was Celeste Rogers, independent practicum in El Dorado Hills. Nicholas wrote, "I consider myself blessed to have everything fall into place for me, especially during this difficult past 18 months." Nicholas was in the program 2 years. He graduated August 4th. Congratulations to Nick. Clara Takarabe, certified in viola. She's from Chicago, Illinois. Advisor, Susan French, independent practicum in Chicago. And Clara wrote, "MHTP gave me hope for where and how music can be situated in society for those who are vulnerable and suffering. For the professional musician, this orientation is deeply liberating." Clara graduated October 6th after 1.5 years in the program. Congratulations, Clara. Sara Wolfensohn, certifying in keyboard from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Advisor, Harry Veo, independent practicum in Brockton, Massachusetts. In Sarah's words, "The course altered the trajectory of my life." She was in the program for 3 years and graduated March 20th. Congratulations to Sarah. And to our last graduate this evening, Sadie Gustafson Zook, certifying in voice and guitar from Roslindale, Massachusetts. Advisor Don Collins, independent practicum in Roslindale. Sadie received a partial grant from the Longy School of Music. And her words, "I'm proud to have this opportunity to bring therapeutic music to folks who need it." She was in the program 3 years, graduating July 17th. Congratulations to Sadie. And to all of our graduates from 2021. To spotlight the graduates, I am going to put their names in our search, so it may take me a moment between them. We have over 64 people here, so it's not easy for me to find them without searching. All right. I saw Susan, yes. Susan Conceicao. Hi, Susan.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Very good, very good. Okay, and our next,
I don't know.
you're on the spotlight now.
Am I supposed to say something?
No, that's okay. We just want to say hello to you.
All right,
As
thank
I said,
you.
it takes a, I'm putting on our next graduate, Victor Effiong.
Hello.
I know is here. Okay. Hi, Victor. Thank you. And then Carolyn Mills. Carolyn from New Zealand. All the way from New Zealand. Thank you for being here. And Clara is here also. Hi, Clara. Congratulations again. Wendelin said she was ill, so, and I just double checked, she's not here. And Nick is here. Very good. Hi, Nick. Glad you made it. Thank you and congratulations. And I saw Margaret, I believe, is here. Yes. Margaret, hi. Good to see you. Back to you. And let's see. I believe, okay, look for Sara. No. And Sadie. Okay, that's all. If I have missed a graduate, please send me a chat. So thank you. Let me put Margaret up here again. And remove your pin. Okay. All right. Thank you all for greeting our CMPs. Our brand new 2021 CMPs. The graduates, many of you are already and others will, if you have not yet, been out into the world doing the work of a CMP, and know that you are a profound blessing to patients and to healthcare staff. You're making a difference in people's lives every day. We are proud to be your colleagues and look forward with gratitude to hearing your stories about all that you are doing to bring wholeness, healing, and peace to others. I am now going to turn this over to Angela. Okay. For our conclusion.
Thank you so much, Carol, and congratulations to our newest CMPs. As a reminder, you can always hear examples of therapeutic music by our CMPs every Thursday on Facebook as part of our Thursdays with Therapeutic Music. And if you are a CMP, please mark your calendar for our upcoming conference, July 8th through 10th, coming right up this summer. We traditionally end our meetings with what is known as a closing. Tonight, it is my turn to share some thoughts. A friend sent me the following message just a few weeks ago. She said, I watched the news tonight, and in the middle of the chaos and heartbreak of the Ukrainian people in their exodus to Poland, there sat a woman in the middle of the square, calmly playing her piano, hoping that she would give people a reason to smile. Music speaks a universal language that we all understand. Music is a universal language, and we as humans are programmed to respond to music from the most basic cellular level to a physical level to an even higher emotional and psychological level. As shown specifically by the experiences of the last 2 years, and I'm sure even more so the last few weeks, our CMPs have the training and ability to turn chaos into calmness, horror into healing, and panic into peace. Thank you for all that you do, whether you are a CMP yourself or you support the work of our CMPs. Each of you make a difference every day. Thank you so much for attending this evening, and good night.